Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're embarking on quite a journey, really, into something deeply human and, well, often unseen: inherited family trauma. Have you ever felt emotions that seem to just come out of nowhere? Or maybe carried a sense of shame that doesn't quite fit your own life story? It can be really puzzling, can't it? And even isolating.
It really can. And if those kinds of questions resonate with you, we really invite you to subscribe and join our community here. We genuinely aim to create a space where it feels safe to explore these deeper aspects of ourselves.
Absolutely. And we really encourage your thoughts and comments below. Share your reflections.
Please do.
So today's deep dive is inspired by the insights of Mark Wolynn's work, particularly his book, It Didn't Start With You.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't about assigning blame to our families. Not at all.
No, that's crucial. It's more about understanding the powerful ways that emotional and psychological pain can sort of be passed down through families, often completely unconsciously.
So let's unpack that. What exactly is inherited trauma? When we use that term, what are we really talking about?
Well, fundamentally, it's about the emotional and psychological pain that gets transmitted across generations. It's often hidden, lurking beneath the surface in things like our anxieties, maybe unexplained shame, or those nagging feelings of low self-worth.
Right. The core idea being that sometimes the trauma we carry, the weight we feel, didn't actually originate with our own experiences.
Precisely. It's the residue, the emotional echo of events or unresolved pain from parents, grandparents, maybe even great-grandparents.
It's quite a shift in perspective, isn't it? Because we naturally tend to think our emotional world starts and ends with us.
We do. We focus on our own biography.
Right.
But this perspective asks us to consider that sometimes we're carrying emotional burdens that belong, in part at least, to our lineage.
And Wolynn's work really brings a kind of compassion to this, suggesting it's not a personal failing if we struggle with these things.
Absolutely. It reframes it. Recognizing that you might be entangled in something larger than yourself can be, well, incredibly freeing. It's often the first step toward healing, just that awareness.
Okay, so the big question then is how? How does this emotional pain actually transmit across generations? It's not like it's explicitly written down somewhere, is it?
No, not usually. It's much more subtle, and it happens on multiple levels. We see it in behaviors that get modeled and repeated, sometimes unconsciously. We see it in core beliefs about ourselves or the world that are just sort of absorbed.
Like unspoken rules or assumptions.
Exactly. And even, fascinatingly, in how our nervous systems respond. Our stress responses, our patterns of connection or disconnection, can be tuned in a way by the experiences of previous generations.
Could you give an example? I think examples really help make this concrete.
Sure. Let's say a father experienced the trauma of war. He might come home and be emotionally shut down, unable to connect, maybe prone to outbursts. His child grows up in that environment, learns that the world isn't safe, that emotions are dangerous. Then that child, as an adult, might struggle with social anxiety or find it hard to trust people even though they never went to war. It's like the emotional climate of the father's trauma shaped the child's developing nervous system and beliefs.
Oh, wow. Or maybe a mother who experienced abandonment as a child.
Right. She might, without realizing it, pass on a deep fear of being left, or perhaps struggle to provide consistent emotional attunement. Her own child might then develop this pervasive feeling of being unworthy or unlovable, creating a cycle.
So it's not always about huge, dramatic events being recounted.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the absence of something, like the absence of safety or trust or consistent emotional warmth.
Precisely. It can be the subtle stuff, the inability to feel secure, a chronic feeling of not enough, or difficulty processing grief. Wolynn refers to these as family entanglements. It's like we unconsciously pick up these emotional threads.
That makes sense. It helps explain those moments when you react so intensely to something and later you think, why did that hit me so hard?
Yes. Or that inner shame that seems completely disconnected from your actual life experiences. These can be clues, little signals that you might be carrying emotional energy that isn't entirely your own.
And it's really important to stress, isn't it, that carrying this kind of ancestral pain isn't a sign of weakness.
Not at all. In fact, Wolynn suggests it often stems from a place of deep, albeit unconscious, family loyalty. It's like a part of us is trying to belong, trying to connect with, or even unconsciously heal the pain of those who came before.
So this loyalty can manifest as what? Unexplained anxiety.
Yes, or depression without a really clear cause in your current life. Feelings of being unlovable, maybe finding yourself repeating relationship patterns, or carrying a deep sense of guilt you can't explain.
The body remembers, even when the mind doesn't have the full story.
That's a perfect way to put it. The body keeps the score, as they say. And this brings us to something really fascinating, the role of epigenetics.
Ah, yes, the science bit. How does that fit in?
Well, epigenetics is basically the study of how behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Importantly, unlike genetic mutations, epigenetic changes are reversible and don't change your actual DNA sequence. But
Well, they can change how your body read the DNA sequence.
exactly. So, research is showing how traumatic experiences of past generations, things like war, abuse, famine, displacement, might actually affect gene expression. This could influence things like stress responses, emotional regulation, even immune function in future generations.
So my grandparents' trauma could have actual biological impacts on me, even if I never lived through that event myself.
That's what the science is suggesting. It adds this whole other layer, a potential biological mechanism for how these echoes persist across time. It's not just a story we tell, it can be embedded deeper.
Which underlines that trauma isn't just a mental thing, right? It lives in the body.
Absolutely. It lives in the nervous system. It shows up as those physical sensations, that tightness in your chest when you feel anxious, the lump in your throat when you want to speak up but can't, maybe a tendency to freeze or feel numb in conflict. These are often bodily echoes of unresolved pain, whether yours or inherited.
This is, it's a lot to take in, but it also feels strangely validating for some of those experiences that are hard to explain.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about what it is, how it might be transmitted, the signs, but the really encouraging part, like the title, It Didn't Start With You, implies, is that this doesn't have to be the end of the story, right? These cycles can be broken.
That's the crucial message, absolutely. Once inherited trauma is recognized, once you bring it into conscious awareness, its patterns can be shifted. While these patterns may have been passed down, they don't automatically have to continue being passed on.
And again, this isn't about blaming mom or dad or grandma.
Not at all. Healing isn't about blame. It's about acknowledging the past, honoring the pain that might have created these patterns, maybe even feeling some compassion for what they went through, and then consciously choosing a new path forward for yourself.
So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, this resonates, maybe this part of my story, where do they even begin? What are some first steps?
It often starts with simply noticing, cultivating awareness. Pay attention to those repetitive emotional themes in your life, that feeling that always comes up in relationships, or that specific fear or that sense of obligation.
Like tracking your own patterns first.
Yes, and then gently asking, who else in my family might have felt this way? Is there a similar story or struggle further back? You don't need definite answers, just opening the door to curiosity.
And then noticing the body's responses too, like we talked about.
Definitely. Observe your body. When do you feel that tension, that shutdown, that anxiety? Your physical sensations are messengers, offering clues about where unresolved energy might be held. And crucially, creating space for both grief and curiosity. Allow yourself to feel whatever comes up without judgment.
It sounds like it requires a lot of self-compassion.
Immense self-compassion. This isn't about fixing yourself because you're broken. It's about listening with kindness to the parts of you that have been silently hurting, perhaps for generations. Your symptoms can actually be seen as guides, pointing towards what needs attention.
Are there specific sort of practices people use for this work?
Yes, there are several helpful approaches. Some people find mapping out their family history visually using something called a genogram really illuminating. It helps you see patterns of loss, addiction, estrangement, success, resilience across generations.
Like seeing the bigger picture?
Exactly. And then there are somatic practices, things that work directly with the body and nervous system. Breath work, grounding exercises, mindful movement. These help regulate the nervous system and release stored trauma energy.
Things like yoga or Tai Chi, maybe.
Could be, yes. Anything that helps you connect safely with your body. And then there's therapeutic work like parts work or inner child healing.
Can you say a little about that?
Sure. It's basically about recognizing that we're made up of different internal parts, a vulnerable child part, a critical part, a protective part, etc. Sometimes these parts carry the burdens or beliefs inherited from our family system. Therapy can help you connect with these parts, understand their origins, and offer them compassion and healing. It's like reparenting those wounded inner aspects.
We've mentioned examples like unexplained shame, echoing a silenced ancestor, or recurring abandonment fears linked to past family losses.
Or struggles with self-worth rooted in generations where love felt conditional. These stories, these patterns, highlight that if you're experiencing this, you're very likely not alone.
That's such a key point. If you carry wounds that feel like they have no clear origin in your own life, your pain is valid.
Absolutely valid. And healing is possible. If your emotions sometimes feel overwhelming, it doesn't mean you're broken.
Right. Those struggles with self-worth, anxiety, shame at host.
Mm.
They might not be entirely your fault, but part of this inheritance.
But inheritance isn't destiny. That's the hopeful message. You have the power to begin again, to nurture your inner self differently, to bring the unconscious into conscious awareness, and to truly step into your own story.
Healing isn't about forgetting the past, is it?
No, it's about remembering it differently, remembering it with love, with understanding, reclaiming your voice, your worth, and ultimately your life. You don't have to carry it all anymore.
Beautifully put. So just to quickly recap some key questions people might have. What is inherited trauma in a sentence or two?
It's the emotional, psychological, and sometimes even biological imprint of past family trauma that gets passed down and affects us today.
How can I tell if I might be carrying trauma that isn't strictly mine?
Look for things like unexplained shame, anxiety, or depression, intense emotional reactions that seem out of proportion, or recurring difficult patterns in your life or family history.
And the role of epigenetics again?
It's the science suggesting that trauma can actually affect how our genes are expressed, influencing things like stress response in future generations, a potential biological pathway for transmission.
And critically, can inherited trauma be healed?
Yes, absolutely. Through awareness, somatic work that helps the body release stored energy, therapy, family constellation work, and deep self-compassion.
Is talking about all the family history details always necessary?
Not always. Sometimes you don't have access to that information. Noticing your own patterns, your triggers, your bodily responses can be a powerful starting point in itself. The healing can begin within you.
And where does someone begin if this all feels a bit overwhelming but true?
Start small. Notice your triggers without judgment. Practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Maybe read a bit more. Consider talking to a therapist who understands this perspective. Listen to your own inner wisdom.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful.
My pleasure. It's important work.
Through time. Just remember, healing really starts with understanding, with giving voice to that silent pain, choosing compassion for yourself and maybe even for those who came before, and knowing that ultimately, you are not your trauma. You are the one learning to hold it with tenderness and write a new chapter.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We genuinely hope this exploration has offered some new perspectives, maybe some comfort, or perhaps sparked some curiosity for you. We invite you to continue reflecting on these ideas. Until next time, please take gentle care of yourself.